Sure, I leave off where I follow on where my colleague left off, because Kilkenny and Carlow are very close. So naturally, I'm just going to talk about rural transport in particular and services, particularly now with the carbon taxes that are coming in and what's being proposed in the next 10 years. That's going to increase, and we're all looking towards public transport. And I believe it's your role in the next 10 years to cover that as best you can, and to provide a service to rural Ireland in particular. I know you look after Dublin, the cities, and I become the same as my colleague here, Pat, that we had a fight to retain services from Waterford to Dublin up to Mullavat, Thomas Hunt, the whole ways, and we're still getting a service there. But will that be improved? We also had to come from Limerick to Callan, Castlecombe, that route. We had to fight for that. You were down yourselves at meetings down there, and we got to retain some kind of a service. But what's the future of, when we are looking towards more public transport in rural Ireland? Do you see a role as providing that service, and a better service, and a more efficient service, and a more regular service now that we're moving towards our carbon footprint in downtown?
Yes, so while we're looking at the regional cities in terms of what's required in terms of public transport to meet our sustainable goals, we're also looking at outside our cities as well in terms of what is the level of service that is required for people to get to their local shops, and get from maybe their local towns then onto their more regional towns, and then to integrate into the intercity kind of services as well. So it's a project that we're looking right across the state, and we hope to identify what is the level of service that's required for each of our small town centres.
Have you control a rural link? Is that part of your remit?
Local link is, yeah.
Yeah, the rural link, as we call it.
Yeah.
That's part of your remit?
It is, yeah.
So the funding for that comes from the NTA?
Comes through us, yes.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So it's about... all our work has been about integrating local link, particularly into the services that are operated by Bus Éireann and even commercial service and our rail services. But on top of that, we're looking at, is that service level the right level to be delivering and providing services for rural Ireland? And that's the study that we'd hope to complete this year, is what kind of level of service we need.
And can you see a rollout of better rural provision of rural?
Absolutely.
I'm not talking about towns, I'm talking about the small villages around,
absolutely.
we say, all our counties.
Definitely.
You can see that as a role and a future there.
Absolutely. Anywhere where we've provided rural transport services, the demand is there. We know it is. There's an unmet demand for better transport in rural Ireland, and subject to the funding that we get, obviously we'll deliver. We will be delivering.
Will this be to private carriers? Is it that could be tendering out to private? That's the way to be done.
Primarily.
That's good. I just want to ask about the city services then, one in Waterford. That is subsidised, the one in Waterford.
It is.
And we're now starting one in Kilkenny. You subsidise that one as well?
We will.
That's when you're stepping up down again.
Exactly.
So that's all your remit?
Exactly.
Well, that's welcome anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to ask you, the Management Green Schools travel programme, what's that about, the Management Green Schools programme? Have you anything to do with the bus service? We say the Bus Éireann service for school buses, because you have a big haven't you? But that's a big turn down our way down in rural Ireland about bus services for schools.
Yeah.
But I just see the green school travel programme. Something there could be funding got for some of the problems we have around the country on the land.
No, we've no responsibility for the provision of school transport services, the contract that Bus Éireann have in place. But the Green Schools is part of the Green Schools programme. They have a transport element, and it's operated by An Taisce, and we fund it. And it's really about encouraging school children and their parents to either walk, cycle, or use public transport to school.
How do you fund it? How do you advertise it, or what way do you roll out that?
It's programme that is developed by An Taisce that we approve. It's subject to obviously an agreement between the department, because the department provide the funding, with ourselves, and we have an agreement with An Taisce about the type of programmes. And it's encouraging programmes. So it's Walk on Wednesdays is one of them, WOWs, where you try and encourage children to walk one day a week to schools, and just trying to provide safe access for school children by walking and cycling.
Are you in charge of the green walks then that are being provided in, like the one from Waterford to Gavin, the one we have from Ross to Waterford that's coming in stream? Are you subsidising that?
No, we're not. No. So we would look at any of the urban greenways, because they're included in some of our cycling programmes for certainly the cities. But any of the other greenways are not funded by ourselves.
Okay, that's good. I just want to know about the taxi services here. I was just reading here, about a year still licence. How many licences were issued in taxi? There was a big complaint about this doubling of too many taxis, etc. It's not as big a problem out the country, but are they still a problem with taxis? Or can anyone get a taxi at Lib, we say, today, anywhere in Ireland? And you're controlling it?
Yes, we're the licensing body for taxis.
And Hackneys.
So if you have a wheelchair accessible vehicle and comply with a small number of requirements, taxi licences and Hackney licences are freely available, and the cost is €125 to get a licence.
So anyone that wants a licence has come through you, and has it ironed itself out here in Dublin? We say oversubscribed the taxis, as they say. The taxi men, when you sit in and go along, you hear the complaints about there's too many taxis here, and more than in New York. You often get this thing being told. Do you find that? Are they right in what they're saying, or is?
They were right a number of years ago. A number of years ago, we had up to 27,000 small public service vehicles. It's dropped down to about 21,000.
Is regulating this?
A lag. It doesn't happen as quickly as you might like, but it has certainly balanced out now to the point that we would like to see more taxis coming in and Hackneys coming in. We need that because the demand is increasing and the numbers are turning upwards just at the moment.
Yeah, and there's not a problem in any other parts of the country. It's mostly Dublin, that problem, is it?
I think in terms of undersupply, it's the cities are slightly undersupplied, or at key times they're undersupplied. There's enough taxis there, but they're not always available at the times you might want them. And there are certainly challenges in rural areas as well. We know about that.
Can I ask about regulation enforcement? You always hear this thing too about people they come home, they go out for 4 hours and they haven't even got a licence. And they have you an enforcement regulation there, and how do you enforce it?
We do. We have a number of we have a compliance team who go around the country doing operations to detect unlicensed drivers and unlicensed vehicles, and we take them through the court process. Is
that your role or the Gardaí role?
It's the Gardaí have an equivalent role. They can also do this, but we have the power to do this. And last year we prosecuted something like 54 unlicensed drivers and a similar amount of unlicensed vehicle. That brought order.
That's good, Yanni, that's good. Yeah. Just income from the fees, it was 83,000 enforcement income and other taxi income 630. Could you give me details of what that is? Break down that 83,000 in respect of taxi enforcement income, and then the other taxi income was 630,000. Just see it there, just ask it when I'm on it.
Well, enforcement income would mainly come from fixed penalty notices. So we issued last year something about 1,800 fixed penalty notices where people breached the rules. Either they didn't have signage on the taxis, they didn't have linked to a database that they need to link to, and various other things. So we just record the income that comes from that, and I presume the other income arises from
stickers and licenses and things like that.
So there's a variety of items that are involved in the licensing that generates that small income there.
Okay, just because my time is running short, I just want to ask you about clamping. Are you in charge of the clamping activity all over the country? We say particularly here in Dublin, which we all experienced.
Not in charge of the clamping, in charge of the regulation of clamping.
Oh, the regulation. Yes. Well, it's mostly private companies that do it anyway, isn't
it? It is, with the exception that Dublin City Council operate a service under their under a contract with them to provide on-street clamping services. But most of the and that's operated by a private company but under contract to Dublin City Council.
It's local authorities are in charge of them, we say, like Kilkenny was.
No, I think they may be, but in most cases you would find that it's the premises owner has contracted out to one of the clamping operators the right to clamp at their particular premises. Yeah. And our role is largely to ensure they're complying with certain regulations, and then we also act as an appeals body if people wish to appeal the clamping fee.
Okay. I see you're in charge of electronic tolling service providers. I remember we talked about this before. You know, the city or the Lake of Water bypass and Limerick bypass, they weren't self-sufficient. In other words, the contract of the public-private partnership wasn't the money coming in wasn't fulfilling is that still the case? And has the taxpayer to subsidise it still? Particularly Watt and Limerick, I think they were two that weren't getting enough funding with the ranges they had under the public-private partnership.
Sorry, Deputy, that's a role for Transport Infrastructure Ireland. We are not. There's a specific role for us. Tim,
can just see it here. Operating National Conciliation Body for Electronic Toll Service Providers.
Yeah. That was a one-off specific role that the department asked us to take on if it came to the point where there was a dispute between toll operators or between toll operators in Ireland and international concerns, but it's not the day-to-day regulation of the role of the toll.
Okay. And the last thing then, I see where NTA is leased and commit in respect of a premise at 35 Fitzwilliam Square, and then you sublease it to CTR. And you're losing money on it. Yeah, the lease you have for 5 years or something, I haven't read it through completely, it's not, when you subleased it then you lost money, I think something around 80,000 per annum. That doesn't make very economic sense that you have a premises, you're paying it for up till 2000, whenever, 24, whenever it is, and you have an arrangement there, and then you sublease it back to another semi-state body at an 80,000 loss a year. Can you explain how that can be making good economic sense or business sense?
Sure. I mean, I can summarise it again if you like, Chairman.
Yeah, I know we went through it earlier, but you're okay. Just a quick explanation of it. No, you're okay. Just a quick explanation.
Of course. I think the context was that in January the 1st, 2011, the National Transport Authority subsumed the previous Commission for Taxi Regulation. And it was the Commission for Taxi Regulation who had originally taken out this lease. At the time they took out the lease, the going rent was 170,000 upward only rent reviews. Subsequently, when the authority subsumed the CTR, that became our lease. We then did some review and calculations about what the best way forward was. Clearly, we wanted to kind of amalgamate all of the CTR employees together with the NTA in the one building. That exercise.
That's one body, two different bodies. CTR.
Previous to 2011, it was two separate bodies. So we immediately set about consolidating the two bodies. And where the real savings were made was we didn't have to have two IT systems, we didn't have to have overheads in two buildings, security costs, insurances, and all of that kind of thing. So the actual savings realised from consolidating the two bodies was 440,000 per year. And that greatly outweighed the difference between the 80,000, which was the subsequent market rent that we got, and was able to give that to the National Curriculum Assessment Body. So overall, we didn't have much choice. We inherited the lease, but the best economic way forward was to amalgamate the two buildings and then sublet it at the best market rent we could get at the time in around 2013. Now, the lease expires in 2024, along with the other leases in the authority as well. So we expect that the whole situation will be resolved, if you like, completely in 4 years.
Can I ask, I just read it there, all upward lease arrangements, there no such thing as down at all. We say when we came through recession, or if we say we go through another down with Brexit and all that, and there is such thing as money dropping upward negotiations. That sounds strange to me in all these contracts you have. And there's only upward rent increases. That's no such thing as it going down. Should that be? Is that right? I mean, should it be up or down according to the economics of the country?
Absolutely agree. And the 2006 one, and that was prior to the establishment of the National Transport Authority. That was the market norms. The NTA has taken out one or two small leases just to expand its accommodation to take on the extra staff, and we haven't entered into upward only leases.
So what you're telling me is the norm then now to make a contract for whatever 2024, but only with upward rent increases. No such thing as keep it level or downwards. The only way you can negotiate is upwards. Is that a fair contract to the taxpayer?
You must remember this was back in 2006.
Even now, even then, it's still happening now.
I mean, as a kind of a lessor, it's obviously attractive. As a lessee, you would obviously not want to have it. So it's down to negotiations in terms of the lease contract. And there's a number of things come into play. It's the lease term, it's the headline rent, and it's whether it's rent reviews or not. So it's very much situation dependent and obviously timing dependent as well.
We couldn't do it in farm or with price of cattle or something like that. We'd be away. That was only in here in Dublin. We couldn't do that with arrangements.
Yeah.
Thank you.